The massive human ship, Hope's Dawn, hung silently against the backdrop of stars, its polished hull reflecting the distant sunlight. Inside, Ambassador James Miller adjusted his tie for the 10th time, trying to calm his nerves. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Collective, an alliance of 17 advanced alien species. 2 minutes until their ship docks, sir, reported Captain Tom White from his station. The bridge crew worked quietly, each person feeling the weight of this historic moment. Miller nodded, watching through the viewing window as the alien vessel approached. It was beautiful, all curved lines and shimmering metals that seemed to change color as it moved. The ship looked more like art than a spacecraft. The docking procedure went smoothly. Miller led his small team of 5 people toward the meeting room, their footsteps echoing in the corridor. He had practiced this moment countless times. Humanity's future might depend on this first impression. The meeting room doors slid open. Miller's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the alien delegation. There were 6 of them, each different from the others. Some tall, some short, some with multiple arms, others with crystalline skin that sparkled under the lights. Their leader stepped forward, a tall being with silvery scales and gentle eyes. "Welcome," Miller said, spreading his arms in the universal gesture of peace. "I am Ambassador James Miller of Earth." The alien leader bowed slightly. "I am High Speaker Reed of the Collective." Its voice was soft and musical, translated perfectly by the small device on Miller's collar. "We are honored to meet humanity at last." Everything was going perfectly. The 2 groups sat down at the large table, and Miller began his carefully prepared speech about peace, cooperation, and shared knowledge. That's when it happened. One of the human assistants, trying to pour water into a glass, accidentally knocked over the pitcher. Water splashed across the table, and in his rush to clean it up, he slipped on the wet floor and fell back into his chair, arms windmilling wildly. Miller couldn't help it. The sight was just too funny, like something from an old comedy show. A small chuckle escaped his lips before he could stop it. The reaction was instant and terrifying. All 6 alien representatives jumped to their feet. The tallest one actually screamed, a high ringing sound that made the humans cover their ears. 2 others backed away so quickly they knocked over their chairs. The High Speaker's silver scales turned ash-gray. "What's wrong?" Miller asked, rising from his seat. "Is everything?" "End meeting." High Speaker Reed's voice shook. "End now." The aliens practically ran from the room, leaving the confused humans staring at each other. Through the viewing window, Miller watched as their ship disconnected from the Hope's Dawn at dangerous speed, its engines flaring bright as it accelerated away. Captain White's voice came over the intercom. "Sir, they're gone. Just jumped to faster than light speed. What happened in there?" Miller looked at the spilled water, the overturned alien chairs, and his equally confused team members. "I have no idea, Captain. No idea at all." He touched his throat where he had laughed. "But I think we need to figure it out fast." In the empty room, the water continued to drip slowly onto the floor, marking the end of humanity's first, very brief, meeting with the Collective. Deep within the Collective's main research station, Chief Scientist Reed paced back and forth, his silver scales still dulled with fear. The observation screens around him showed different recordings of humans laughing, each one making him shudder. "Play it again," he ordered. A young assistant with crystal-like skin pressed some buttons, and the recording of Ambassador Miller's laugh echoed through the room. All 20 scientists present winced at the sound. "There," Reed pointed at one of the screens showing energy readings. "Do you see it? When the human makes that sound, it creates waves we've never seen before. Look at how it ripples through space itself." The scientists gathered around the display. The graphs showed strange patterns that seemed to break all known laws of physics. Every time a human laughed in their recordings, these patterns appeared. "But that's impossible," said Dr. Blue, an older researcher with 4 arms. She adjusted her instruments carefully. Nothing should be able to affect space-time like this, not without massive amounts of energy. Reed walked to another screen showing humans in different situations. Look at how often they do it. When they're happy, when they're nervous, even when they're afraid. They produce this energy so easily, like breathing. The research team had been secretly watching Earth broadcasts for weeks now. They had recordings of human comedy shows, family gatherings, children playing, all filled with laughter. Each instance showed the same disturbing energy pattern. Chief Reed called out a young researcher named Mark, his tentacles waving with excitement. I found something interesting. The pattern changes based on the type of laugh. Everyone crowded around Mark's station. He played different recordings: a child's giggle, a deep belly laugh, a nervous chuckle. Each one created slightly different ripples in space. This is beyond anything we've seen, Reed whispered. These humans, they're walking weapons. They don't even know what they're doing. Dr. Blue raised all four of her hands for attention. There's more, she said quietly. I compared these patterns to our historical database. The computer found a match. The room went silent. Blue's fingers shook as she brought up an ancient file. The energy pattern it showed was almost identical to human laughter. This can't be right, Reed said, his scales turning almost white. This file is from the Great Terror, over 50,000 years ago. The computer is certain, Blue replied. The match is 99.9% perfect. Reed looked at the screens showing happy humans laughing with their friends and family. How could these creatures produce the same energy that had once threatened to destroy everything? The same energy pattern that had shaped the evolution of every species in the collective. Send word to the High Council immediately, Reed ordered. Tell them we know why we fear human laughter. Tell them our ancestors were right to build this fear into our very DNA. As if to emphasize his point, another recording of human laughter played in the background. Every scientist in the room felt their ancient instincts scream in terror, warning them of a danger their ancestors had faced long ago. The research station fell quiet, except for the soft beeping of instruments still measuring the impossible power of human joy. In the deepest level of the collective's archive station, where records from before the founding of their civilization were kept, Reed stood before a massive data crystal. His silver scales reflected the dim blue light as he carefully placed his hand on the ancient storage device. Are you sure about this? Dr. Blue asked, all four of her arms holding different scanning devices. These records haven't been accessed in 10,000 years. They're fragile. Reed nodded slowly. We need to know the truth. Why did our ancestors fear this sound so much that it became part of our genetic code? The crystal hummed to life, projecting holographic text and images into the air around them. Mark, the young researcher with tentacles, quickly began translating the ancient language. It speaks of a time of darkness, Mark said, his voice trembling. Before the collective, before our civilizations, there was something in space, something that fed on fear. The hologram showed massive dark shapes moving between stars, entire solar systems going dark as the ancient horror passed through them. Reed felt his scales tighten against his body as he read the descriptions. Here, Dr. Blue pointed with two hands while the other two took readings. The records say it wasn't a physical creature. It was made of pure energy that existed between dimensions. More images appeared, showing entire species falling into panic and despair as the entity fed on their negative emotions. The more fear they felt, the stronger it became. But look at this, Mark said excitedly, his tentacles curling around a particularly old section of text. There was one frequency, one specific pattern of energy that could hurt it. The same pattern we see in human laughter. Reed moved closer to the ancient writing. Our ancestors, they found a way to create this energy artificially. They built massive machines to generate it. The holograms shifted to show enormous structures on different planets, all humming with power. But the images that followed showed them failing, breaking down under the strain. The machines couldn't maintain the frequency. Dr. Blue read aloud. They weren't natural enough. The energy had to come from genuine joy. Her voice dropped to a whisper. That's why the humans can do it so easily. They're not making it artificially. Reed's scales turned a pale gray as he reached the final records. The last defense, he read. 10,000 of our ancestors gathered in one place. They found a way to feel joy even in their final moments, to generate enough of this energy to drive the horror away. They sacrificed themselves to save everyone else. A hologram showed the final battle. A massive dark shape recoiling from waves of energy that looked exactly like the patterns they'd recorded from human laughter. And now, Mark said quietly, humans make this same energy every day without even trying. No wonder our bodies react with such terror. We're designed to fear the most powerful weapon ever discovered. Reed stared at the final image. The dark shape retreating into deep space. Send all of this to the High Council, he ordered. They need to know. The humans aren't our enemies. They're living proof that the greatest defense against darkness is joy itself. The ancient crystal dimmed, leaving them in silence with their disturbing discovery about humanity's unique power. Ambassador Miller stood at his office window on Earth's largest space station, watching as another alien trading ship changed its course to avoid the station entirely. It was the 10th ship this week to do this. Sir, his assistant Jack walked in, holding a datapad. We just lost 3 more trade agreements. The collective's merchants are pulling out of all deals with no explanation. Miller rubbed his tired eyes. For 2 months now, the collective had been quietly cutting ties with humanity. Not in any obvious way. There was no declaration of war or open hostility. They were just disappearing. Show me the latest numbers, Miller said. Jack brought up the report. Alien ship traffic near Earth has dropped by 85%. Our colonies on other planets report being completely ignored by collective ships, even during emergencies. And now this. He paused, looking worried. What is it? We intercepted a children's education broadcast from one of their worlds. Jack played the recording on the main screen. The video showed alien children being taught about different species. When they got to humans, the teacher's voice became serious. Humans are touched by the ancient darkness, the teacher said. If you see one, stay away. Their power is not natural. Miller hit the pause button. They're teaching their children to fear us. But why? A message alert flashed on his screen. Another trade deal canceled, this time with a mining colony that had worked with humans for months. The message was short. We regret we must end our partnership. Check the deep space monitoring stations, Miller ordered. Jack quickly brought up the data, showing hundreds of alien ships moving away from human-controlled space. It's like they're all running away from us, Jack said quietly. Miller thought back to that first meeting, how the aliens had reacted to his laugh. Since then, he'd noticed how even the few aliens still talking to humans would flinch at any sound of human happiness. His computer chimed again. This time, it was a message from an alien cultural exchange center. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we must cancel all pending human visits. They're isolating us completely, Miller realized. But they're doing it so carefully that we can't even officially complain. There's no single action big enough to protest. Jack looked at the growing list of canceled agreements. What do we do, sir? Miller was about to answer when his security chief burst into the office. Sir, you need to see this. Our long-range cameras caught something at the edge of collective space. The screen showed a massive alien city ship, big enough to hold millions. It was changing course, slowly turning away from the human sectors it had been heading toward for years. That's the Pioneer, Miller said in shock. It was supposed to be the first joint human-alien city. We spent 3 years planning it together. They watched in silence as the huge ship disappeared into faster-than-light speed, leaving behind only a short message. Project terminated due to safety concerns. Miller stared at the empty space where the city ship had been. Whatever made them fear us, he said quietly, It must be something terrible. No one abandons years of work and investment unless they're truly afraid. Outside his window, another alien ship adjusted its course, giving the human station a wide berth. Miller sat alone in his darkened office, reviewing the latest reports of alien ships avoiding human space, when his computer suddenly activated on its own. A face appeared on the screen. An ancient-looking alien with scales, so old they had turned almost transparent. "Ambassador Miller," the alien whispered, looking nervously over its shoulder. "I am Professor Gray. I don't have much time. They'll detect this transmission soon." Miller leaned forward. This was the first direct alien contact in weeks. "Professor, what's—" "Listen," Gray interrupted. "I'm risking everything to tell you this. Your species needs to know the truth about why we fear you." The old alien scales trembled. "Long ago, before our civilizations existed, something terrible lived in the spaces between stars." Miller watched as Gray sent data files to his computer. They showed ancient star maps and strange energy patterns. "It was a cosmic horror," Gray continued, "a being that fed on negative emotions. Fear, hatred, despair. The more fear it caused, the stronger it grew. It nearly destroyed all intelligent life in the galaxy." "What does this have to do with humans?" Miller asked. "The frequency." Gray's voice shook. "Your laughter, your joy. It creates the exact energy pattern that drove the horror away. Our ancestors discovered this frequency but could only make it artificially. It took thousands of them sacrificing themselves, forcing themselves to feel joy in their final moments, to create enough energy to drive the horror away." Miller's eyes widened as he understood. "And we make this energy naturally, just by laughing." "Yes, our species evolved to fear this frequency because it was the only thing powerful enough to hurt the great darkness. When we hear human laughter, our bodies remember that ancient time. We can't help our fear. It's built into our very genes." Suddenly, alarms started blaring on Gray's end of the transmission. The old alien looked panicked. "They've detected me." "Listen, Miller, your species didn't evolve this ability by accident. Something in Earth's past." The screen went dark. Miller sat in silence, processing what he'd learned. He pulled up recordings from the first contact meeting, watching again how the aliens had reacted to his laugh. Now it made sense. They weren't being rude or hostile. They were literally unable to control their fear. His computer chimed with new data files decoding themselves. The ones Gray had sent. They showed clear comparisons between human laughter and the ancient frequency that had saved the galaxy. "Computer," Miller said quietly, "call the Earth Defense Council. Priority 1." As he waited for the call to connect, Miller looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a brave old alien had risked everything to help humans understand the truth. And somewhere even further, in the darkness between stars, perhaps something ancient was stirring. His computer chimed again. The council was connecting. Miller took a deep breath, knowing he was about to tell them something that would change humanity's view of the universe forever. Behind him, the decoded files played silently, showing waves of joyful energy pushing back the darkness of space. The emergency sirens shattered the quiet night at Earth's deep space monitoring station. At first, the technicians thought their equipment was malfunctioning. The readings were impossible. "Get Ambassador Miller," ordered Control Chief Danny. "Now." Miller arrived within minutes, still adjusting his jacket. "What is it?" Danny pointed to the main screen showing a massive dark shape moving through space. "It's absorbing light, heat, everything. 3 outer colony planets have already gone dark. The collective ships in that sector, they're all running." The room fell silent as they watched the darkness spread. It moved like a living thing, reaching out with tendrils of pure shadow between the stars. "Send me everything you have," Miller said quietly, his mind racing back to Professor Gray's warning. On another screen, he watched as alien ships fled in panic, their fear seeming to make the darkness grow stronger. Reports started flooding in from the colonies. People were experiencing unexplained feelings of dread and despair. Some were seeing strange shadows even in fully lit rooms. "Sir," a young technician called out, "the collective just sent a transmission to all their worlds. Listen." The alien message played. "The ancient horror has returned. Evacuate all outer systems. It feeds on our terror. It remembers us." Miller watched as the massive shape changed course slightly, moving toward the heaviest concentrations of fleeing ships. The more the aliens panicked, the faster it grew. "That's why they feared our laughter," Miller whispered. "They knew it would come back. They knew what it was all along." The main screen showed new data. The dark entity had doubled in size just in the last hour, feeding on the fear of billions of aliens fleeing their homes. "Sir," Danny said, his voice shaking, "at its current growth rate, it will reach Earth in less than a week." Miller stared at the screen, watching the ancient horror that had nearly destroyed all life eons ago. The same horror that had made the collective's ancestors sacrifice themselves to save the galaxy. The same horror that had accidentally shaped human evolution. "Send word to all human colonies," Miller ordered. Tell them to prepare for evacuation." He paused, then added, "And get me the largest broadcasting companies on Earth. All of them." "You have a plan, sir?" Danny asked. Miller watched as another alien world went dark. "Professor Gray said our laughter creates the same energy that drove this thing away before. We make naturally what their ancestors died trying to create artificially." He turned to face the room full of scared technicians. "We're not going to run. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to laugh in the face of darkness." On the main screen, the horror consumed another star system, growing ever larger. But for the first time since the alarms went off, Miller felt a smile tugging at his lips. "Contact every human entertainment center, every comedy club, every place where people gather to have fun," he ordered. "We're going to need them all." The darkness between stars grew deeper, but it had no idea it was moving toward the one species in the galaxy that had evolved to fight it with joy itself. "You want us to do what?" asked Bill West, Earth's most famous comedian, staring at Miller in disbelief. The emergency meeting room was packed with comedians, entertainers, and even professional laughers from around the world. "We need you to make people laugh," Miller repeated, showing them the latest images of the approaching darkness. Not just a few people, billions of them, all at once. The room broke into confused murmurs. On the main screen, another alien world vanished into darkness. The few remaining collective ships had fallen back to their core worlds, their fear feeding the horror's endless hunger. "I've seen your broadcast plan," said Lisa Moore, a comedy show host. "Synchronized comedy shows across every human colony. Live streaming to every device. This is crazy." Miller pointed to the energy readings from human laughter. "This is the only weapon we have. The only thing that can hurt it. The collective's ancestors died creating this same energy, but we make it naturally." "Wait," Bill interrupted. "You're saying our bad jokes can save the galaxy?" "Not bad jokes," Miller smiled. "Real laughter. Pure joy. The kind that comes from deep inside. That's what creates the energy pattern that drives the horror away." The room went quiet as technicians set up more screens showing the approaching darkness. They had 5 days left before it reached the first human colony. "We'll need more than just professional entertainers," said Dr. Blue, who had arrived from the collective to help. All 4 of her arms were busy with calculations. "We need children laughing, families sharing jokes, people feeling genuine happiness even with that thing approaching." Miller nodded. "That's why we're converting every public space into entertainment zones. Parks, squares, stadiums, anywhere people can gather. We'll have games, shows, anything that brings out natural laughter." "And you think this will work?" someone asked from the back. "It has to," Miller replied. "The collective runs from it, which only makes it stronger. We're going to stand our ground and fight it with joy itself." The planning went on for hours. Comedians started working together on routines. Broadcasting experts designed systems to reach every human settlement. Someone even suggested using the old emergency broadcast satellites to spread the signal further into space. 5,000 years ago, Miller told them as the meeting ended, the collective's ancestors sacrificed themselves to save everyone else. They had to force themselves to feel joy in their final moments. But us, he smiled, we just have to be human. The room filled with determined nods. These people were used to making others laugh. Now they were going to do it to save the galaxy. As they left to begin preparations, Dr. Blue approached Miller. You know, she said quietly, in all our histories, no species has ever tried to fight the horror like this. They all ran in fear. Miller watched as the entertainment teams rushed off to start the biggest show in human history. That's because they never learned what humans know, he said. And what's that? Sometimes laughing is the bravest thing you can do. Outside, the first practice broadcasts were beginning. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an ancient horror was about to learn why human laughter had terrified the collective for so long. The massive dark shape loomed at the edge of human space, its tendrils reaching toward Earth's first colony. In the 5 days since Miller's plan began, the horror had consumed 3 more alien systems, growing larger with each world's fear. But now it faced something different. All broadcasting stations ready, Danny reported from the control room. Every human settlement is connected. We're reaching 98% of our population. Miller watched the final preparations on the screens around him. Every park, stadium, and public space across human space was packed with people. Comedians were taking their positions. Families gathered around screens at home. The collective ships are holding position at safe distance, Dr. Blue reported, her 4 arms working multiple controls. They think we're insane for not running. Maybe we are, Miller smiled. Start the broadcast. It began with children. Across every human world, kids started playing games and telling silly jokes. Their pure, innocent laughter filled the airways. The monitoring stations picked up the first energy waves immediately, ripples of joy spreading through space. Then the comedy shows began. Different shows for different people, stand-up comics, funny movies, game shows, everything humans had ever created to make each other laugh. The energy waves grew stronger. The horror paused at the edge of the colony, its darkness rippling as if confused. For the first time in its ancient existence, it felt resistance before even touching a world. Energy patterns are matching the ancient records. Dr. Blue called out excitedly, "It's working." Miller watched as the darkness tried to push forward, but seemed to hit an invisible wall of human joy. In parks across Earth, people were having picnics and playing games, refusing to give in to fear. At the colony, settlers organized impromptu parties, their laughter creating shields of light in space. "Sir," Danny pointed to new readings. "The entity. It's starting to pull back." The huge dark shape was indeed retreating, its tendrils withdrawing from the colony space. But it wasn't enough. It was too big, too strong from feeding on so much alien fear. "Full power to all transmitters," Miller ordered. "Start the final." Across human space, the biggest comedy event in history reached its peak. Every jokes, every game, every moment of joy hit at once. The energy waves became a tsunami of light spreading through the darkness. The horror recoiled violently. Where once it had fed on fear, now it was being burned by pure joy. Its massive form began to break apart at the edges. "The collective ships," Danny said in awe. "They're coming closer. They want to see this." Through the observation windows, Miller could see people in the park below still playing and laughing, even as the greatest battle in galaxy's history happened above them. Parents swinging their children, friends sharing jokes, couples enjoying picnics, all of them creating the energy that was saving everything. The horror made one last attempt to push forward, but met a wall of human happiness that it couldn't break through. With a silent scream that rippled through space itself, the ancient darkness began to tear apart. "We did it," Dr. Blue whispered, all four hands trembling. "You brave, crazy humans actually did it." Above them, the darkness that had haunted the galaxy for eons was dissolving into nothing, destroyed not by weapons or fear, but by the simple sound of human laughter. 1 month after the horror's defeat, Miller stood in the Great Hall of the Collective Council, facing representatives from all 17 alien species. The fear in their eyes had changed to something new: respect. "The records have been updated," High Speaker Reed announced, his silver scales gleaming. "Human laughter is no longer classified as a terror signal. It is now officially listed as the greatest defense our galaxy has ever known." The hall erupted in sounds of agreement from the alien delegates. Even Dr. Blue, standing beside Miller, had learned to control her instinctive flinch when humans laughed. "Our ancestors," Reed continued, "died to create the energy that you humans make just by being happy. We feared you because we didn't understand. Your species didn't evolve by accident. You evolved to be the galaxy's guardians." Miller watched as the great screens around the hall showed images from the battle. Humans going about their lives, playing, telling jokes, enjoying themselves, and their joy creating waves of energy that had destroyed an ancient evil. "The collective officially requests," Reed said, "that Earth establish entertainment centers on all our major worlds. We need to learn from humans, not to fear joy, but to embrace it." "We accept," Miller replied with a smile, "on one condition: you have to promise to at least try laughing yourselves." A nervous murmur ran through the alien crowd, but it wasn't entirely fearful. Some of them looked curious, even eager. "Already," Dr. Blue reported, checking her instruments, "some younger aliens are trying to imitate human laughter. It's not creating the same energy yet, but they're learning." The screens changed to show the new construction across collective space: human entertainment venues, parks designed for both species, and the massive joy generation stations that would broadcast human happiness across the galaxy as a permanent defense system. "The dark entity fed on fear for millions of years," Reed said. "It never imagined that its ancient enemies would give birth to a species that turned happiness into a weapon. Every time humans laugh, you create ripples of protective energy through space itself." Miller thought about how far they'd come. From that first disastrous meeting where his chuckle sent aliens running in terror, to now when alien children were being taught that human laughter was the sound of safety. "The collective's deepest fear became its greatest protection," he said. "Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor." A few aliens in the crowd actually chuckled at this, a new sound, unpracticed but genuine. The energy sensors in the room picked up tiny ripples, nothing like human laughter yet, but a beginning. "Let the record show," Reed announced, "that from this day forward, human entertainment is classified as a Class 1 defense technology. All colonies are encouraged to host human comedy shows, games, and celebrations." As the council session ended, Miller watched aliens and humans mixing together in the hall. An alien child was trying to play peekaboo with a human baby, copying its giggles. "You know what this means?" Dr. Blue asked, all four arms busy taking notes. "What's that?" "Human comedians are now officially the most powerful defense force in the galaxy." Miller laughed, and for the first time, the aliens around him didn't run away. Instead, they moved closer, feeling the ripples of joy that kept the darkness at bay. In the space above them, the stars shone brightly in a galaxy that was now protected not by weapons or fear, but by the simple, powerful sound of human happiness.